Hey, what's happening guys? Reaper here and back with a new painting video. And we're back to Reaper Bones as well. Since I've been doing a lot of the Barbarians at the moment. But I'm doing the Reaper Bones Dwarven Brewer. Although it's called Dwarf Brewer on the website. Which is a bit weird. Because the packet says Dwarven Brewer. But we're starting off with a bit of tanned flesh just to cover the skin areas. And when I've looked at concept art, the arms are covered. But I felt like the arms doesn't look like they're meant to be covered, so I've just done them as flesh because it just adds a little bit of difference. That's probably the best thing about a model like this. There's no set artwork, so you can do what you like, pretty much. Then we move on to Army Green. All my paints that I'm using in this are Army Painter paints because that's my bulk collection. But I'm just using the green to cover off most of the area that of his clothing, but I do go back and change part of it later on. I realised it doesn't quite fit and it was just too much green. That's all the green done. Then we move on to Necromancer's Cloak, which is for his boots and the small pouch he's got on his back. He's just got one random pouch on his back, so I figured I'd make that stand out a little bit. And with the boots, it took me a while to work out where his other boot was, because you would expect him to be standing so they'd be either side, but he's kind of leaning on the barrel, which means his legs are actually together. Then we move on to Army Painter's hemp rope, just to go around the edging of his tunic. It just makes it all stand out a little bit more and a little bit more fancy and regal compared to how it would be if it was just plain green. And that's it for hemp rope. I had to bring it off the camera a bit to get a good look. Now we move on to probably my favourite part of the finished model, is his beard and his hair, which is Army Painter's Fyrelizard. And it might not look much when it's done now, but after the wash and the highlight, I'd say it looks amazing. It's probably my favourite part. Although I do like his copper tankard that I do as well. That's a nice touch. To be fair, this is a good model in general, and it's nice to do a model that isn't combat orientated. He has got a massive warhammer on his back, but that's not really what the model's about. It's solely about the beer, very much, which is how a dwarf should be. And that's it for the first layer of hair. Then we move on to Rough Iron, which is one of Army Painter's metallic paints. And it's just for the rim, that wrap straps, they're called, I think. the straps around the barrel, basically, of metal that hold it together. And also, he's got a shoulder pauldron, which doesn't seem to fit. It looks a bit weird, but I put it in anyway. Well, I haven't put it in anyway. They put it in anyway, and I'm just painting it up. But I use rough iron on that as well because it makes more sense to be more of a dark iron, and then I give it, say, light edging. That's it for the iron, and then we move on to the other metallics, which is plate mail metal, and this is where I do his big massive warhammer, and also eventually I will do the edging on the pauldron as well. That's it for the metallics for now. I think I do the copper cup later on, but we move on to leather brown now. This is where I paint over the he's got like a cape on his back, and I originally done it in army green, but this is where I decided I'm going to go back over that and do it in leather brown, as it just makes it stand out that bit more. Otherwise it would just look like his tunic is just sort of falling apart, and I didn't really want that. And then on to the last metallic, which is weapon bronze, which I keep calling copper, but it's bronze, but they do turn out to be the same sort of colour in the end, which is a bit weird, but I can let that go since they are similar colours anyway. But this is just for his tankard, and also the feather. He's got like this weird feather motif on his pauldron. So just to make that stand out a bit, it's been done in bronze, but that doesn't get washed with the same wash. Then we move on to the barrel, which is army painted as oak brown. That's it for the oak brown. You can see I went over the handle for the warhammer as well, so I wanted to change that from just a solid handle. I figured a stick would make more sense. Now we move on to brain matter beige, which we are just painting beer essentially. Well, we're painting the froth of beer, and he's also got these two straps holding his hair together at the back, which I've done in the same colour, and of course eyes. Whenever I have a light colour, like an off-white, I will just do the eyes with that instead of getting out my white just to do that. Now on to the wash stage of the model, and we just flesh wash all over the skin. I try not to get any of this on his hair because I want to use a red wash on the hair, because I want it to darken up to be, well, a ginger dwarf, as that's the standard dwarf, it seems. Then we move on to army painter's green tone, to do all of his clothing. I use this for literally all of the clothing as well, not just the green parts. I've used this on the cloak at the back, which is leather brown, and also his boots. It gives everything that sort of shine to it, and then obviously you highlight back up to the colors you want. That's it. Then we move on to Army Painter's red tone, which is his beard and hair. I keep forgetting he's got hair. Like, he's bald on top. I just see a beard. But he's got long hair coming down the back, which you just wash up with a little bit of red tone. It darkens it up, and you highlight back up with Fyrelizard afterwards. I also used the red wash on the tankard as well, which darkens it to that bronzy colour. And we move on to strong tone, which is for the last few bits of the model, which will be the barrel, the hammer, and I believe I did the pauldron as well with strong tone. That's it for the washes. You leave them to dry and then come back to do the highlight stage, which we jump straight back into the flesh, which we just go with tanned flesh. Well, I just go with tanned flesh and just basically bring out all the edges, leaving everything in the recesses. I didn't feel the need to go with that in a more extreme highlight in this model because it's got quite large features as it is. The normal highlight such as this sort of stands out really well. And then we move on to Fyrelizard, which is the hair and the beard. And this basically makes this beard immaculate in my eyes. I think this is probably the best I've done a ginger colour hair since I've actually started painting. You just literally, for those of you that haven't done a lot of edge highlighting, it's, as you can see here, I'm just literally dragging the brush just faintly across the tips of all the raised areas. Not quite a dry brush level because there's quite a bit of paint on there because I want it to stick. But you just avoid the recessed areas and it makes it stand out really well. Then we move on to leather brown, which is for the edge of the barrel, and I also do the edges of each plank in the barrel, as well as obviously the cloak that he's got on the back. Then we move back onto hemp rope just to tidy up and finish up the edging around all of his tunic and his bracelets. And that'll be it for the hemp rope highlights. And then we move on to weapon bronze to highlight back up the tankard. Well, it's not really a highlight. Well, it's the highlight, but it's not really taking it back to weapon bronze. It's just a pure edge highlight, as thin as possible, just to bring out details that it's got. It's got a nice little sort of swirly motif on it. So I thought I'd go around that and make it stand out a bit more. And then we take Dungeon Grey to highlight up the edges of anything that was necrotic flesh. No, Necromancer's cloak. Necrotic flesh is a very different colour. It just makes the boots, and it makes it look black, but not like it's not black. That makes sense. It just makes it stand out that bit more. And then on to the final highlight, which is plate mail metal. This is just to bring the edges of the Warhammer back up and the flat areas. And I also noticed when I was doing the spit, I think it's called, on the barrel. Spigot, it's called a spigot. The barrel, I noticed that there's little rivets going around the banding. So I just quickly touched them in just to make them pop a little bit against that rough iron. And then of course finally we finish up, like I finish all of my D&D models with a black base. It's just Army Painter's matte black. This has probably been one of my favourite models to paint. It's detailed enough that it works, but it's all quite large details, so it makes it nice and, well, that. And as you can see, I love that beard. That's amazing. But cheers for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.